over here is before the presentation. Then we have outline, explain, factors that must be considered by the presenter while presenting. So here we're not only looking at our cognitive verbs, we're looking at what are they asking. So they can ask us while presenting, they can ask us before the presentation. Like while we're presenting, will there be eye contact? Is there visual aids? We do not speak too fast. Are we pausing effectively during the presentation? Then we're going to identify factors that must be considered when giving or preparing for a presentation and during the presentation. And then lastly, we're going to look at explain how to respond to questions after a presentation. And that's going to be our feedback and our question and answer sessions. Then we have quote ways in which the presenter can handle feedback in a non-aggressive and professional manner. Suggest, recommend ways in which a presenter can handle feedback. Explain, suggest, recommend areas of improvement in the next presentation. And then lastly, it's identify areas of improvement. So, let's start with the factors that must be considered when preparing for a presentation. And this is quite a famous question. It came in the GBE, Department of Basic Education, 2015, February, March 2016, November 2017. So it's quite a popular question. So factors that must be considered, here are the split markings, clear purpose, and the main points of the presentation. So when I'm presenting, I need to ask myself, what is the purpose of the presentation? What is the main points I want to get across? Main aims captured in the introduction, opening statement of the presentation. So like preparing any presentation, no matter if it was your research project, no matter if it's your essay, your introduction is crucial. Information presented should be relevant and it should be accurate. Fully conversant with the content of the presentation, the presenter should consider the time frame. If it's 15 minutes, you have enough work to cover that 15 minutes. Here's to ensure a confident presentation and effective use of time. Factors that must be considered when preparing for a presentation. This came up in the November 2017 and the November 2020 paper. And here describe the factors you would consider. Recommend 2 aspects to consider when preparing a successful presentation. Discuss the factors that Tabo should consider before doing a presentation. Explain to people the factors you should consider when preparing a presentation. So you see, this question comes up all the time. Actually, it's been asked from 2015 right from last year. And this is where you gain your marks. Here is a typical question, that factors that must be considered when preparing for a presentation. Read the scenario below and answer the question as follows. Some of the marketing manager of Trio Enterprise is preparing to present a business report to the stakeholders. He is fully conversant with the objectives of the presentation. Some also create visual aids that will support and enhance his information. Now, quote 2 factors that Zama considered when preparing for his presentation in the scenario above. Let me just see if I put that in. Yes. Quote from text. He should be fully conversant with the objectives of the presentation. Some are also created visual aids that will support and enhance this information. Grade 12s, under no circumstances will you decide to write down your own answer. The answer is given to you in the case study. You rewrite the entire sentence, not only the essence of what you think the answer should be. Please try to write down the entire sentence. Factors that must be considered by the presenter when presenting. Name 4 factors that the presenter should consider. Advise the marketing manager on the factors to consider during the presentation and advise Zama on the factors that he must consider while presenting. You hear it's the same concept coming up all the time. The only thing I will take note here is my cognitive verb, which is advise. And by this time we should know advise means double ticks, okay? One sentence marked with 2 ticks at the back. Very rarely when they say name 4 factors we will get 8 marks like that, but it will also be the double ticks. Factors that should be considered by the presenter while presenting. Now earlier we were doing before the time. What do you do before the time? Before the time is, like before today's presentation, I would set up my PowerPoint. I would think about what type of theme would I want for my PowerPoint. I would consider the core book and aligning the content I have with the core book and aligning the content with the exam guidelines. But during the presentation, let's see, show the most important information first. Avoid hiding behind the equipment. The only reason why I'm hiding behind the equipment today is because I don't want to put my picture in the picture and then it's all in the way. Maintain eye contact with the audience. Be audible, be loud, be clear to all your listeners. Use visual aids effectively. Speak with energy and enthusiasm. I hope I'm doing that. Pace yourself. Do not rush or do not talk too slowly. Keep the presentation short and simple. And manage your time effectively to allow time for questions. So this needs to be considered while you are presenting. Take note, it was asked in the 2016 paper. It was asked in 2018. And in November 2020, when they have the 2, it means it's the second paper because it was the first time last year that we obviously wrote 2 papers. How to respond after a presentation in a non-aggressive and a professional manner. How to respond in a non-aggressive and professional manner. As she presented her sales figures to various stakeholders, at the end of her presentation, she ensured that no member of the audience dominated the discussions. She apologized for making an error in her presentation and acknowledged good questions. Quote 3 ways from the scenario in which Isa responded to the questions after her presentation. Remember, grade 12s, when we quoting, we are quoting from the text. Do not answer your own work. So here the questions is, at the end of a presentation, she ensured that no member of the audience dominated the discussion. So that means she didn't allow one person to ask questions only. She apologized for making an error in a presentation, and she also acknowledged good questions. The second one said, advise Aisha on other ways. Other ways mean not the three that was given. Other ways in which to respond to questions after a presentation. The word advise obviously means it's a double tick system. How to respond to questions after a presentation. We're still coming to the content. I'm just wanting to show you how popular this question is. November 2018, GBE 2018, February, March 2017, February, March 2016. State 4 factors to be considered when responding to questions. Outline 4 aspects, that's a double tick. When responding to questions in a non-aggressive and professional manner, they will either say you must be non-aggressive or they will tell you to be professional. Advise people of the facts that you should consider when responding to questions. And there we go, it's a double tick system. So, how do we respond to questions after a presentation in a non-aggressive and professional way? We've all been at seminars, we've all been on a Google Meet, and there's a question and answer session. I'm very interested to see how do the presenter handle this part of the presentation. I can tell you what not to do first. Some presenters get angry when you ask them a question. They get defensive. They even get rude. Because they almost think, sometimes you have a point of clarity and they think you are being difficult with them. That's not the reason. Perhaps the person in the audience really don't understand. So what must you do? Ensure that you understand each question and what is being said. So normally what you do is come and rephrase the question if uncertain before responding. So I would say, Mrs. Hussain, let me see if I got you right. You're asking me, will the schools be going on holiday in October? And she would say, yes, ma'am, that's indeed the question. And I can categorically say yes, because we work so hard. So that is just an example, how you would rephrase the question to make sure that you understand what exactly the speaker is asking. Think carefully before responding. Address the questions and not the person. What do I mean by that? I need to answer what the speaker asked. And now I shouldn't get personal and say, it's always you, ma'am, asking the question. That would mean I'm becoming personal. I need to answer the question and says, the question was, will the schools be going on holiday? And the answer is yes, ma'am. Or if I don't know, it's like, ma'am, at this stage I do not know, I cannot make a comment. We will remain professional, polite, calm, open and non-aggressive. I mean, as teachers we are asked questions in our class every day. And we remain professional. We polite even if we're asking the question for the third time today. We are calm. We're non-aggressive. And when our learners ask us, ma'am, would you like us to write down the notes? And we say, we just sometimes roll our eyes and say yes, if you don't mind. Ma'am, what's today's date? Same story. Do not get involved in a debate or argument. We are not here as a speaker to, stand for a certain viewpoint. You say what you need to say, and if you realize this is going to escalate into an argument, you can say to the speaker or the person asking the question, would you mind sending me an email and I get back to you? That would be the safest response.
An opinion body.
So that is how we deal with responding to questions.
A tube. And that tube,
ways in which a presenter can handle feedback in a non-aggressive manner. The presenter should stand throughout the feedback session. Very interesting that the presenter should stand throughout the feedback session. We must be polite, confident, courteous when responding to questions. Ensure that each question is clearly understood before responding to questions. Once again, if you are uncertain, please rephrase. Provide feedback as soon as possible after the question was asked or after the session. So if there's feedback, if there's a question, try and provide the feedback as soon as it is asked. Be direct, honest, sincere when responding to questions, and if possible, use simple language to support the examples used in the presentation.
So we are going to look at glomerular filtration. And again, I just want to emphasize,
keep answers short and to the point.
More blood coming in than what
apologize, acknowledge
as a result
mistake,
of that,
if pointed out by the audience.
Pressure
often in the class,
which we call the glomerulus.
It's possible teachers say we spelled the word incorrectly on the PowerPoint, so we just use the word out of context.
And
I would say that to us.
That I will just follow
and immediately apologize, acknowledge your mistake. It's only human to make a mistake.
Because that is important.
Encourage questions from the audience. And then lastly, always address the questions and not the person.
On the left of the screen now, where it says arterial blood.
There's actually quite a bit of feedback and they would really ask us so many. I think the maximum I've seen in an essay was 5 points.
At this point they are called capillaries.
If you are looking in the core book and there's about 10 to 15 points, please do not study all 15 points. Select the 5 that you know the best and answer that, okay?
Interesting here is that the cells have slits between them.
Look up, this one is normally part of an essay question always. Areas of improvement in the next presentation.
But those openings.
It came up in 2017, which means it was an essay in February, March. 2019, it was actually asked twice.
Small enough to pass.
And it was asked in November 2019. So this is actually very popular. And very often with our grade 11,
the pinkish here,
this is normally the essay question in the grade 11 paper as well. So you should be familiar with this from the last 2 years.
The pointer is now, it represents
what could be changed?
In a wall, the cells
the presenter should revise objectives that were not achieved.
Epithelial tissue to form cells which are called podocytes.
The same with our react sessions. I would like after the today's session, which is the last, that there should be some feedback. What was working, what worked well, what wasn't working well, was the sound, was the audio effective, was the venue, the lighting in the venue correct,
when I say blood particles,
the slides, how was the slides, was the slides too busy, was it relevant? Is it aligned to the work in the court? Was it worth your while to come Thursday after Thursday to come and sit for an hour of the school when you're very exhausted to come and listen to a presentation? So we should revise our objectives. And this, like any other presentation, is no different. We should use humor appropriately.
This process is called glomerular filtration.
It's always good to make a joke. To just lighten the tension.
Because of the
always be prepared to update and keep the information relevant.
It is also called
reflect on any problems, criticism, and avoid it in future presentations.
Pushes.
I remember one of the first broadcasts that we did from our studio here at school. We didn't realize if the mic was placed away from the laptop that the audio sound would be so soft. And one of the feedback that we got that the audio was terrible. And it took us just moving the speaker in a certain direction for us to get the audio right. And we would not have known that if there was not any feedback. We also had feedback that it's rather the presenter's face was dark in the studio. And we realized that we needed to get a ring light. So there's more light on the face so that you could see. You heard Mr. Bouch say today we need to get a Chromecast at the back. That's the picture of the school at the back is not very clear, and we just need to make that better. So, and that we only learn with feedback. So therefore you need to be open, especially going forward. We must reflect on the length of the presentation. Do we need to add more content? Do we need to remove content? Is an hour enough? Should it be 45 minutes? Should it only be 30? What should we do? Should we decrease the use of visual aids or remove aids that did not work too well?
And this is what is.
Is there a logical flow of the slides of the visual aids? And these are all things that going forward we can work on. Then there is the second part of the exam guidelines that refers to, let me just move my cursor across. Here, outline, explain aspects that must be considered when designing a multimedia presentation. Give examples of non-verbal presentations as well as non-verbal types of information and types of graphs. Explain, discuss, evaluate the impact of the following visual aids. Teachers note here there's only 6. In the previous exam guidelines there was many. So just check the 2020 the exam guidelines. These are the ones that we are focusing on, and the learner must be able to identify the visual aids from a given scenario. Okay, come now. I just want to go to the next page. You've been looking so well all day. Let's see. Aha, there you go. Okay, this question comes from the November 2017, November 2020. Aspects that must be considered when designing a multimedia presentation. Chabo had to do a presentation to management, advise him on the aspects to be considered. Advise obviously means a double tick system. So it came last year in the 2020 paper. This one over here is how we used to answer it. Teachers, just take note of the changes in the 2021 exam guidelines, okay? Because going forward, this is how we should answer. Start the text with, which forms the basis of the presentation? So you always start with the text, which in our case is the core book. Use a legible font and a font size so that it is easy to see. I believe when it comes to a PowerPoint, our smallest font size should be between 20 and 24.
And to force that.
Select the background to enhance the text.
And the structure.
The background shouldn't take away from the text. It shouldn't be too busy. Choose images that may help to communicate the message. And use bright colors to increase visibility so there you can see our heading is nice and bright. I absolutely love the colors it seems. Limit the information on each slide by using keywords and not full sentences. Here I must apologize, but because we are learning, or at least we are teaching you how to answer the question and in exam skills, and that is why we opt for the full sentences.
You can see how close the contact is. But
so let's look at the examples of non-verbal presentation.
Goidal epithelial cells have a layer of micro.
We have
many folds, and those folds.
We have graphs, handouts,
and from
it didn't show everything. We have flip charts and we have diagrams. Okay. So here, this is our table. Our graphs you are familiar with. You get so many handouts at school. This over here is a diagram. Flip chart is
only cross.
When we get the white paper on an easel. Normally when we have a workshop and the presenters writing notes on the white paper on the easel that they can turn around.
Greater. And that's what
we have written business report.
That is what is happening.
Like our annual business report that we have. We have photographs. And illustration.
Remember those folds?
We have line graphs, pie graphs, histograms, and a pie chart.
In the middle.
Slideshows, which is like a PowerPoint. And then we have different scenarios as well.
Look at this one.
And then we get other non-verbal type of information.
The cellular respiration.
Like a picture tells 1,000 words.
Main function is cellular respiration.
This is the sign you've been looking for.
So, it is no coincidence
and
that
so you get photographs.
Many mitochondria.
And in the era of social media, we know how effective a picture can be.
The low glucose into
March 2017.
In other words, to take substances.
Give 2 examples of non-verbal presentation.
Energy comes from many mitochondria.
You're only requested to do 2, but there are just so many alternatives.
This tubule
here in business information, this is your opportunity to score some lovely marks, okay?
So that
because this is things that you know.
Substances can cross over. And then there's many mitochondria.
This comes out of the November 2018 paper. Read the scenario below and answer the question as follows.
So,
Java shoe manufacturer. Simple, the marketing manager of J's aim. Explain his future plans to increase sales to various stakeholders. Hard copies of his plans were distributed for future reference. Identify the type of visual aid that SIPO used. Motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario above. Remember, when we are motivating, we are quoting from the text. So he uses hard copies of his plans, was distributed for future references. And marks will not be awarded if it is not, the visual aid is not properly identified. Because they tell you the motivation, but you had to identify the type of visual aids. So the handout flyers, brochures, that would have been 2 marks, and the motivation would be 1. Evaluate the impact of the visual aid. For handouts, printed copies, notes and brochures, and a handout, a printed copy, a note, a brochure, these are non-technological. You use technology to prepare them, but when you give it to someone, they're non-technological. It can be handed out at the end of the presentation to highlight the key facts. Or you can hand it out at the beginning to attract attention. The first one that comes to mind is at the beginning of it. To attract attention, I was thinking when you go to a funeral, you're given the pew pamphlet at the beginning so that you get the hymns, that you can sing along, you get the obituary of the person, you get all the information that you need. And sometimes when you go to a presentation, it makes more sense to give one at the end of the presentation, so when you go home you can go and consolidate this work. And more information can be handed out example questionnaires. Sometimes when we hand out the material at the beginning, it can be distracting. It depends on the circumstances. I do not want you to read everything while I'm busy chatting. Summarize only the core information, therefore information may be lost. Sometimes while you're doing a presentation and you could do just the key points on the PowerPoint, like when you're doing a mind map, and in your notes you will have the full set of notes. Printed media is very expensive and some people just throw it away. All the teachers here can know there are often days when you hand out a handout in class, and by the time the class leaves, some children have just left that handout on the desk, or even worse, on the floor. I mean, we've all experienced that. When we talk about the word impact, we just need to spend a second here. It's advantages only, disadvantages only, both advantages and disadvantages.
Inside the body. So that is
from the 2016 paper we have, read the scenario and learn answer the question that follows.
All those processes.
Hope a financial manager has to present a financial report at the next management meeting. She intends to use electronic slides and will provide printed copies. Identify two visual aids in the scenario above. They didn't ask you to quote, but they mean that you must quote, okay?
And the third process I want to talk about.
Choose one of the visual aids identified above and explain why it's effective. Talk about an electronic slide, a PowerPoint, a slideshow.
Actively taking the waste products that are still present in the
why would this be so effective?
And taking that waste.
It's easy to combine with a sound video clip. And it saves you time as you can prepare it before the time. Less cluttered slides may capture the interest of the audience.
Especially of the
video clips can provide a variety and capture the attention of the audience. And variation of color and sound retains the interest of the audience. And slides should be used where it can enhance the fact. At my school, we do a mindful Monday, and each one get a topic to discuss. Each one of the teachers had a little presentation. And if I look at that presentation, my presentation was on empathy. It's very different to this. There I opted to use pictures, lots of pictures. I opted to use small little videos. I opted to use music because
the tubule also,
they are not writing about it. They do not need to be. They do not need to take notes about it. It doesn't have to be aligned to a core book. It is something that is just motivational. So I have the option to keep it light, less cluttered, video clips. It is fun to listen to. Although the topic is heavy, it's fun to listen to. So this is what we mean when we talk about advantages.
What happens?
The impact of the PowerPoint or data projector.
This picture just summarizes everything.
It often could be that there's an unprofessional handling of the PowerPoint. May result in the audience losing interest. It can be less effective to people with visual impairments. That's people that, they cannot see perhaps on the screen or have visual problems. Sometimes what I'm doing now could be regarded as wrong, simply reading of the slides, because it can make the presentation meaningless. So I hope that you are indeed just working with us with this. Unable to show the slides without electricity or a data projector. Unfortunately, when we don't have a data projector, things are just hectic.
That come out and keeps this area very salty. So,
printed copy handout notes, we did this one already, so I don't have to go through that.
That is
I need to say this particular slide is not very interactive because of the type of questions that we have. It's not like the winter school where we had a section A, section B.
And it will go down the ureter into the bladder.
And,
right. You've listened to me now.
Give 3 examples of visual aids in the scenario. About PB, a marketing manager, is planning to present his business sales figures to various stakeholders. He intends to use handouts at the beginning of the presentation. He also wants to use graphs and tables, so it's easy to quote here.
And I want us to...
Then we could have the question... We went through this already. Evaluate the impact of the PowerPoint, of data projectors, of handouts, flyers, flip charts, interactive whiteboards, posters and signs.
It deals with the structure of the neuron.
And
the nephron.
Needless to say that
so if you have done it already,
impact means advantages only, disadvantages of both advantages and disadvantages.
I'm sure you'll be able to.
I'm just going to draw to your attention, this comes from March 2015, November 2019, and 2016 paper.
If you see a question like this, what do you do?
I don't even know if people use overhead projectors anymore. I haven't seen one full office for a while.
So before we look at what questions there are, let us move.
This was used predominantly when we didn't have computers and data projectors, and it's very similar. We can, it's lovely to work at mathematical sums on a simple graph. It's lovely for physics and accounting. You can prepare it electronically while you're busy in the class. And it's sometimes often used in conjunction with a data projector. You can project the question on the data projector, and then you can answer the question on the overhead projector.
3 is the Malpighian body.
You need to be very organized because sometimes you can just become a mess. Especially if it's not in order and when you touch the transparency.
Do not
then the cookie can smudge. This reminds me of my earlier days of teaching.
Number 5. It's a descending lump of pending.
This does offer a replacement backup. And I don't think, I personally just feel that it should be taken out of the curriculum because it's not relevant at all. And I just said all those things. That is what I wanted earlier, a flip chart. That's how a flip chart looks.
Right, let us now.
Mainly used for the small audience. Absolutely brilliant for creative thinking, brainstorming sessions. If ever you get something like this and you need originality, you can say that flip charts is brilliant to use for brainstorming.
Once you identify blood vessels numbers.
It's also good to write down the feedback on there.
We've already done that. And then there are sometimes
if your handwriting is terrible, I don't know why the presenter's handwriting is always terrible. Workshops.
Identify parts numbered 3, 4, and 6. I see you've already done it.
Evaluate the impact of the interactive whiteboard came up in 2019.
Name of the process.
The interactive whiteboard, so those schools that are lucky to have it. Images can be projected directly from a computer. So we don't need a data projector. Special pens allow the presenter to write on the board. Additional notes that was added during the presentation. Easy to combine with other visual aids and useful to capture feedback.
Processes. Pre-filtration or ultra-filtration.
Should only be used by a presenter who knows the unique features of the interactive whiteboard. Not all teachers know it. Cannot be connected to any computer and special software is needed. And there could be technical challenges around this.
Number 6.
Evaluate the impact of your poster signs, banner, portable advertising. Grade 12 should just give us this part of your assignment. Let me just see if I can do that. Just to remind you, I was talking to you. You did a poster as part of your research project. You had to do the CSI initiative of one of the businesses that you were looking at. And while I was looking at these posters, I was looking for the following. Number 1. Should you put the logo of the company that you were busy on? I had 90% of my class look at ESCOM. Number 2, was your poster of the CSI, was it attractive? Was it large? Could I read what was on there? Was it stimulating? And I personally looked at many of the posters and I said to my learners, you have to redo this. Because it went against everything that I expected in the poster. And I'm sure some of you teachers looked at your posters and advised you people also on it as well. And so, this is just a good time to mention. It can be overwhelming as it was too big, but I decided in many cases, sometimes it was just too small. And this is exactly what I say, was it eye-catching? And that. Let's see, different type of question. Identify the type of visual aid presented in each case below, March 2018. The financial manager is using slides to present financial reports to stakeholders. Yes, it's a PowerPoint. The sales manager listed figures for November, December, and January in columns. So that's a histogram or a bar graph. Okay, there's my answers. This answer over here says table. The sales manager listed figures for November, December and January in columns. This is definitely an error over there. There should definitely be a bar graph or histogram. Colleagues, do you agree with me? Just put it on the chat. Would you also have written there a bar graph or histogram? Because immediately when it says in columns to indicate sales turnover, just let me see if anything is coming up. Okay, well, let me see. Woo! And when we always end with an essay question. It was asked in 2017, wise men of a financial advisor want to present his business plan to various investors using a PowerPoint slideshow. An overhead projector and handouts to enhance the quality of his presentation. He is not sure whether his presentation will be effective as he has never done one before. He also lacks confidence in answering posed by the audience. Let's look at all the bold letters it says. Outline the aspects. Double ticks over there. When designing a multimedia presentation. Discuss the advantages of a PowerPoint slides, an overhead and a handout. Now take note, they didn't say impact. They very specifically asked for advantages. The cognitive verb discuss, explain, elaborate, that are split marks. We know that by now. What did you have to explain? During his presentation. So here you can talk about eye contact during the presentation. And elaborate on the aspects you should consider when responding to a question. Every grade 12 should know this. Remarking against Lazo, 32 for facts, 2 for layout, 2 for analysis, 2 for synthesis, and 2 for originality. Layout means you must write the word introduction and conclusion and a sentence below. Analysis means you must discuss all 4 bullet points. Synthesis means we need to keep it relevant. I can't be talking here about ethics and professionalism. When ethics is not the topic of the day. I need to keep it original. There should be an example. I'm just giving you the bare bones to this. Your essay question. Write down the word introduction. Failing to do so can result in no marks being awarded. A verbal presentation is an oral spoken presentation. The purpose of it, the purpose is always to exchange information. Aspects for designing a multimedia presentation. Take note 5 facts only, although the memo provides so much more. Outline is my double ticks. Advantages of a PowerPoint slide. Take note advantages only. It is split marking, so you give the first part of the sentence and then you motivate. Discuss. Split marking, I said that. Same here, advantages. I'm going through this fastly because the essays your teachers will have at school. And I'm just showing you the guidelines for answering it. Okay, these are all advantages. It's very rare that we get it's very rare that they ask for advantages only. This was one of the few questions I've seen it in. No, most often it's impact, but they can ask this question. Fact is needs to be considered, I can't emphasize this enough, when you're answering a question on presentation on information, make sure, is it before, is it during, is it after? Because before the time I consider my audience. During the presentation it will have a different answer. Sorry. And obviously afterwards it will be the feedback. And then the last part was aspects to consider when answering in a professional, non-aggressive manner. This question, I guarantee you, is going to come up either in section B or section C. Split marking, because it's used the word elaborates. Conclusion, write down the word conclusion. Failing to do so can result in no marks being awarded. Here in 2015, also business ventures, but asked differently. Robert is a jewelry designer and wants to sell her new range of costume jewelry to teenagers and students. In Zinc Limited targets the teenage clothing market. Robin has to make a sales presentation to the directors. They agreed to give her the opportunity to present a plan at the next board meeting. She decided that a verbal presentation supported by visual aids would be most suitable. As an expert, assist Robin to prepare a successful presentation that she will get to contract the suppliers. Your advice must include the following. Factors that Robin should consider when preparing for the presentation. Evaluate any 4 types of visual aids. Propose or advise or recommend ways Robin to respond to feedback. And advise how Robin can improve her next presentation. A different scenario. An effective business presentation requires presenters to be well prepared. Many presenters prefer to use handouts and interactive whiteboards to cater for different audience. It is important that presenters handle feedback in a non-aggressive and in a professional manner. They should strive to improve on the next presentation. Outline the factors that should be considered when preparing, so that's before. Discuss the impact of handouts and interactive whiteboards. And then the last 2 questions was exactly the last 2 of the previous one. Explain how presenters should handle feedback after presentation and suggest areas of improvement to the presenter for the next presentation. So you see, so we just highlighting the words when preparing for the presentations, after, and areas of improvement for the next presentation. And just like that, we came to the end of this afternoon's presentation and the series of presentations that we had. I absolutely love this quote. If you are not willing to learn, no one can help you. Because the interest and the desire is not there. But if you are determined to learn, no one can stop you. Because I have seen children that are, or learners that are determined to learn, that I did face-to-face tutoring at Cascade. It was storming on Saturday morning, and I thought, no one will pitch up. Because the children had to come via public transport, and with their own transport they had to come to school. And I was amazed that we had over a 95% attendance. And that was just for me. So the eagerness of the learners, if you are determined to learn, no one can stop you. You are not stopped. We don't even stop when we get tired. We pause for a minute, we grab something to eat, we wash our faces, and we carry on. So may that encourage your grade 12. And let me tell you, this time of the quarter your teachers are exhausted as well. But we continue, just like you, we keep on doing what we're doing. I just want to thank you, all our participating in school, our teachers and our learners, and we're wishing you a safe journey home. And let me just, this series of tutoring, the online tutoring that we had, I really need for our learners to know that we need to thank the teachers for this extra sacrifice in the afternoon. It takes a special type of energy to come from a day of teaching, where we've been teaching all the periods of the day, where we're doing COVID screening in the morning, where we're keeping social distancing and we nagging whole day but wearing masks. We're doing interval duties, and then at the end of the day we rush to bring our class to a venue to present or to come and listen to a presentation. So grade 12s, there where you are with your teachers, just applaud them. Give them a special appreciation, because what they're doing for you is absolutely, absolutely amazing. And I just want to thank them, because without the Mrs. Hussains and the Mr. Williams and the Mr. Alcasters and Kezia Isaacs, it would not always be possible to do this. And good luck with your prelim exams. Please prepare hard, prepare well, dig deep, give it everything you have, write as if this is the final exams. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Thank you very much. And so, grade 12s, all of the best of this exams. I want you to take this exams extremely seriously. I need you to work as if this is the end of the year. Make it your best efforts. So, good luck with your prelims, and to the teachers, good luck with the marking, and good luck with the exhausting